I watched Evelyn Santos climb down the basement stairs at 9:47 p.m., manila envelope clutched against her chest like a shield. Her hands shook as she reached the bottom step. "Mr. Brenner, I'm sorry to bother you so late. I found these on the office copier this afternoon and brought them straight here. Show me." She crossed to my workbench and set the envelope beside my stereoscopic microscope. 47 pages slid out. Corporate ownership transfer forms, each one bearing what appeared to be my signature. "Thank you for bringing these, Evelyn. You can go home now. Don't mention this to anyone, especially not Melissa." She nodded and hurried back up the stairs, relief visible in her shoulders. I heard the basement door close, then her car starting in the driveway. I pulled on my reading glasses and positioned the first document under 40 power magnification. Baseline waiver. Uniform pressure through the entire stroke. Photocopy artifacts along the right edge where she'd scanned and repositioned my name onto corporate documents I'd never signed. Amateur work. Melissa had traced these. I moved to the next page. Same tells. Then the next. 47 ownership transfer forms, each one attempting to move my 60% stake in Brenner Document Solutions to an LLC I'd never heard of. I removed my reading glasses and set them in their worn leather case. 30 years as a postal inspector. 14,000 question documents examined. 200 convictions. In all those years, I'd seen baseline waiver patterns exactly twice. Both forgers had used lightbox tracing. Both were convicted. My daughter thought I wouldn't notice. I sat for a moment, considering my options. Confront her directly. Call the police. Pretend I'd never seen these documents. None of those paths led anywhere good. I pulled my phone from my cardigan pocket and called Patrick. "Dad, it's almost 10. I need you to pull metadata from some PDFs. Tonight, before you say anything to your sister." Silence on the line. "Then, how bad is it?" "Just the metadata. I'll explain when you get here." I ended the call and began sealing documents into evidence bags with practiced precision. Habits from 1978, still muscle memory. Glenn Miller played from Margaret's old radio. 47 counts. Each one a separate offense. Each one carrying its own penalties. She did this to herself. Ready for the real payback? Hit subscribe, and let's continue. I started as a postal carrier in 1978. 22 years old, walking routes through Lawrenceville with a canvas satchel that weighed 40 pounds by mid-morning. 60 by 3. Brick row houses lined both sides of the street. Steel mill smoke visible across the river. The smoke carried the sharp metallic scent of burning coal and heated iron, hanging heavy in the summer air. I'd eat lunch on customer porches, studying for the postal inspector exam between bites of Margaret's sandwiches. She worked double shifts at Allegheny General, while I carried mail and attended night classes. Our studio apartment had study notes taped to every wall. Criminal procedure. Evidence handling. Document examination fundamentals. Margaret would quiz me over dinner, still in her nurse's scrubs. When I missed a question, she'd flip back 3 pages and make me start over. The exam came in December 1979. I passed with the second highest score in the Pittsburgh district. The Postal Service kept me on carrier duty for another year while waiting for the next training class. Postal inspector training started in 1981. 3 years of walking routes had given me what the academy couldn't teach. Patience. The ability to notice small details after hours of repetition. How to document everything without thinking about it. I met Chen at FBI training in Quantico in 1984. Both of us specialized in questioned document examination. The Bureau was developing new forensic techniques for handwriting analysis, and the Postal Inspection Service needed examiners who understood the science behind signature authentication. Chen approached microscopic analysis like chess problems. I approached it like walking routes, Together, we cleared 47 cases in 3 years. My first major case came in 1986. Insurance fraud ring operating across Pennsylvania and Ohio. Forged signatures on claims totaling $2.3 million. The FBI sent me 47 documents to examine. I set up my stereoscopic microscope in the basement office they'd given me in Pittsburgh. Margaret brought coffee at midnight. I showed her the baseline waiver patterns under magnification, the uniform pressure that natural handwriting never produced. "How many different people signed these?" she asked. 12 separate forgers. Same training, probably the same equipment. The FBI arrested 16 people 3 months later. I testified in federal court for the first time in May 1987. The prosecutor mounted blown-up photographs beside the witness stand. 8 by 10 images showing pressure patterns, invisible to the naked eye. I explained pressure patterns, stroke sequences, the mathematical impossibility that one person could produce signatures with such variation. The jury convicted in 4 hours. Over 20 years, I testified 47 times in federal court. 200 convictions. Defense attorneys learned my name meant their expert witnesses would be challenged on cross-examination. Prosecutors requested me specifically for high-stakes fraud cases. I developed a reputation for one thing. My word was absolute. If I said a signature was forged, it was forged. The science didn't allow for uncertainty. I retired in 2001 with $87,000 in savings. I wanted to buy authentication equipment and start a private practice from our basement. She worked the numbers 3 different ways, came back with the same answer each time. "We'll be broke in 18 months if this doesn't work." "I know." She kissed me and signed the check. Brenner Document Solutions started in the basement of our Squirrel Hill house. 1 stereoscopic microscope, 1 electrostatic detection apparatus, 1 UV light station. I sent letters to every law firm and insurance company I'd worked with during my postal career. The first client paid me $1,200 to authenticate a questioned contract signature. The second client tried to tell me what result he wanted to hear. I refunded his retainer and sent him to a competitor. Margaret asked if we could afford to turn away business. "We can't afford not to," I said. Word spread. The firms that wanted honest analysis found me. The ones that wanted predetermined results went elsewhere. By 2003, I had work from 12 regular clients. By 2007, revenue hit $400,000 annually. I hired my first junior examiner in 2009. Trained her the same way I'd trained myself. Document everything, verify everything. Never testify to anything you haven't examined personally. By 2010, we were pulling $800,000 in annual revenue. Corporate clients, rare book collectors, legal firms handling merger disputes that hinged on questioned signatures. Melissa learned signature analysis at 12, hunched beside my microscope, identifying baseline waiver. Patrick built our first database at 14, cataloging 40 years of exemplars. Patrick joined in 2012, managing digital infrastructure. Melissa joined as CFO in 2015 after earning her Carnegie Mellon MBA. Margaret's cancer diagnosis came in 2014. Stage 3. The company had just hit $1.8 million in revenue. She spent the last 2 years watching me build what she'd encouraged me to risk everything on. She died in October 2016. The company valuation had reached $6 million by then. She never saw it hit $8 million. I still work in the basement workshop every Sunday morning. Same routine Margaret and I shared for 20 years. Big band radio playing, Glenn Miller. Coffee in the same mug. Vintage fountain pens spread across my workbench. The collection started in 1995, a Parker duofold from 1927 at an estate sale. Margaret saw me examining it, saw something shift in my face. "Buy it," she said. "I've catalogued 207 pens now. Each one documented with provenance, manufacturing date, previous owners when known. I restore them Sunday mornings, while the coffee cools and the radio plays. This morning, I'm working on a 1932 Parker Vacuumatic. The nib has a slight left-hand split from decades of use. Previous owner pressed harder on downstrokes, creating wear patterns visible under magnification. The nib requires pressure. My knuckles are stiffer than they were in 1978, but the muscle memory remains. I examine the ink flow under 40 power magnification. The barrel's celluloid has aged to a deep amber. Original owner kept it in a shirt pocket based on clip wear. Pens tell stories, if you know how to read them. My filing cabinets contain signature exemplars dating to 1978. 45 years of documentation, personal contracts, company and corporation papers, annual filings, every significant signature I've made since I started as a postal carrier. I maintained that archive from habit, not paranoia. Postal inspectors document everything. It becomes reflex. Never imagined I'd need it to prove my own daughter forged my name. I complete the Parker restoration, test the ink flow against cardstock. The line runs clean, no skips. I add it to the glass case as number 428. Update my catalog with the acquisition date and restoration notes. The workshop smells like machine oil and old paper. Morning light filters through the small windows near the ceiling. Same light that fell across Margaret's shoulders when she'd sit here with her coffee, watching me work. I examine the pen's nib angle one more time. Writing implements reveal their users through microscopic wear. Pressure patterns, stroke sequences, habits accumulated across decades of repetition. Signatures work the same way. You sign your name 10,000 times over 40 years. Your muscles develop memory. The pen angle becomes automatic. The pressure variation reflects unconscious rhythm. You can't fake that with tracing paper and a light box. I place the Parker in its case, lock the glass door. 428 pens. Each one, a story about how people hold writing instruments, how ink flows, how muscle memory creates patterns that can't be consciously replicated. The filing cabinets beside my workbench hold 45 years of my own muscle memory. Every signature showing natural evolution. The gradual changes that come from aging hands and decades of repetition. Melissa traced a photocopy. Probably thought close enough was good enough. She never understood that expertise isn't about keeping up with trends. It's about mastering fundamentals so thoroughly that you see what everyone else misses. Pens tell stories through nib angles and pressure patterns. Signatures reveal muscle memory accumulated across decades. You can't fake 40 years with one night of tracing practice. Glenn Miller fades on the radio. I finish my coffee, rinse the mug Margaret bought me in 1983. The workshop feels quiet without her, but the work continues. I built this company from $87,000 and a basement microscope. Built it on reputation, earned through 30 years of federal testimony. Built it by refusing to compromise on the one thing that mattered. My word was absolute. Melissa thinks she can steal it with forged paperwork. She's about to learn what 14,000 question document examinations taught me. Amateur forgeries reveal themselves under proper examination. I rinse Margaret's mug, place it on the shelf. Upstairs, Patrick's car pulls into the driveway. 8 years earlier, Melissa joined as CFO in June 2015. She arrived on her first day carrying a leather portfolio and wearing a charcoal suit that cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. I met her in the third-floor conference room, where she'd already spread financial statements across the mahogany table. "Dad, we need to talk about operational efficiency." I sat down across from her. 27 years old, with her Carnegie Mellon B.A. Still warm from the printer. Margaret was in her final year of illness. The office felt heavier. I thought having Melissa there might help. What specifically? She tapped her pen against a highlighted section. You spend 6 hours examining routine signatures. Junior examiners could do those in 30 minutes. Every document I certify might end up in federal court. I can't testify to work I didn't do myself, which is why we need systems to scale that reputation. You can't be the bottleneck. I looked at her spreadsheet. She'd calculated how many additional cases we could accept if I delegated 80% of routine work. The revenue projection climbed 43%. We'll discuss this at the board meeting next month. Her jaw tightened, but she smiled. Of course. The board meeting came in September 2016. It started at 2. Melissa presented her rush fee proposal using a PowerPoint deck with animated graphs. Premium pricing for expedited authentications. Clients paid double. We guaranteed 48-hour turnaround instead of our standard 2 weeks. Laura Kendrick leaned forward. Won't that affect examination quality? Not if we allocate resources properly, Melissa said. Rush cases go to the front of the queue. Dad handles anything complex. Junior examiners process straightforward signatures. I waited until she finished. The board looked at me. 30 years of federal testimony taught me one thing. The witness stand doesn't care about your turnaround time. Defense attorneys ask how many hours you spent examining the document. I can't testify that I used the same methodology for rush cases that I use for standard examinations if I didn't. Melissa's smile stayed fixed. We're leaving money on the table. We're protecting our testimony record. The board voted 5-2 against the proposal. Laura Kendrick and the original members stayed loyal. Melissa smiled and thanked everyone for their consideration and left the room first. March 2017. The marketing consultants arrived in matching navy blazers. They prepared a brand analysis showing that Brenner Document Solutions had limited market appeal compared to more generic names. Premier Document Solutions suggests broader capabilities, the younger one explained. National scope rather than family business. I sat at the head of the conference table. Our clients hire us because they know my name from court testimony. Rebranding removes that connection. Exactly, Melissa said. We need to establish that the company is bigger than one person. That it will continue regardless of personnel changes. Personnel changes. She meant my retirement. My death. Motion to table the rebrand discussion. The board vote was 4-3. Melissa's new members voted with her this time. June 2018. I bought a gray suit for Melissa's wedding. The ceremony took place at the Pittsburgh Athletic Association with 200 guests whose names I didn't know. String quartet playing during dinner. Centerpieces that cost more than my first microscope. Todd Hartwick stood at the altar in a custom tuxedo. His cuff rode up when he took Melissa's hand. Swiss watch, same model I'd seen in fraud case exhibits. During the reception, I noticed his BMW in the parking lot. Leased plates. The watch was real, though. Rolex, $40,000 minimum. Congratulations, I told him at the bar. Thank you, sir. Melissa's told me so much about the business. I'm excited to contribute fresh perspectives. Fresh Perspectives arrived in February 2019. Todd became marketing director with an office next to Melissa's. His first initiative was a client entertainment budget. Country club dues. Pirates, luxury box tickets. Steakhouses, where entrees cost what I paid for my first microscope. Relationship building, he explained at the budget meeting. Proof. Our competitors take clients to sporting events. We need to match that level of engagement. I signed the budget approval. Patrick had recommended keeping the peace. By July 2020, Melissa had recruited 2 new board members, both from Carnegie Mellon's business school network, both under 40, both viewing the company as an asset to optimize rather than a reputation to protect. The board split 4-3. Laura Kendrick and the other original members stayed loyal to my methodology. Melissa's faction pushed for growth acceleration. Hearst, October 2020 board meeting. Melissa stood at the projector, presenting quarterly metrics. Revenue up 12%. Client acquisition up 18%. Average turnaround time down 22%. These numbers prove the optimization strategies are working, she said. But we're still constrained by outdated processes. I looked up from the financial statements. Which processes? Manual examination instead of AI-assisted authentication. Insisting on microscopic analysis when software can flag suspicious signatures in seconds. Dad learned authentication before computers existed. We need to update our methodology for modern business. The room went quiet. No one had called my methods outdated in a board meeting before. Machine learning can't testify in court, I said. It can provide preliminary screening. You examine flagged documents personally. Everything else goes to junior examiners. And when defense counsel asks whether I personally examined the document in question, she turned off the projector. We're talking about market share, not testimony records. Patrick stayed neutral through all of it. He managed our IT infrastructure, maintained relationships with both camps. When the vote came on the AI software, he studied his laptop screen. I maintain infrastructure, he said. Strategy isn't my department. He abstained. Wouldn't meet my eyes when the meeting ended. January 2022. I discovered Melissa had hired 3 new junior examiners without consulting me. I found out when payroll sent me the authorization forms to sign. I called her office. We need to discuss staffing decisions. I'm CFO. Staffing falls under operations, which reports to the CEO, which is why I'm sending you the forms. You can review and sign. The line went dead. I opened a new leather journal that night, dated each entry, noted who was present. Exact quotes when I could remember them. April 2023. We were reviewing signature exemplars when the client asked how my retirement was going. I set down my loop. I'm not retiring. He looked confused. Melissa said you were stepping back for health reasons. I said nothing to the client. Went home and added the call to my journal. Client name, date, exact phrasing Melissa had used. Company email announcing organizational restructuring arrived in June 2023. My title changed from CEO to founder and senior examiner. Melissa promoted herself to CEO. Todd became COO. I found out when clients started addressing correspondence to Melissa instead of me. July 2023 board meeting. The board scheduled time for my quarterly technical review. Melissa referred to me as the founder 4 times during her presentation. Never as CEO. Never by name. I noted each instance. Timestamps. Witnesses present. Melissa interrupted me twice during my explanation of new spectroscopic analysis techniques. Can we speed this up? We have budget discussions scheduled. I noted the interruption in my journal that evening. Time, 2:47 p.m. Witnesses, 7 board members, 3 senior staff. August 2023. A law firm I'd worked with for 18 years called asking about my retirement plans. We've used your testimony in 43 cases, the partner said. Melissa told us you're transitioning to advisory role. Will you still be examining documents personally? I'm not retiring, I said. The partner sounded confused. Melissa said you wanted to enjoy your remaining years. Remaining years. I thanked him and hung up. Added the call to my journal. Client name, date, exact phrasing Melissa had used. September 2023. Melissa accepted a case I'd previously declined. Rare book dealer wanted authentication on a Shakespeare signature. Provenance gaps suggested theft. I'd declined in 2009. Melissa accepted it 3 weeks ago. Assigned it to a junior examiner. Billed $90,000. I documented the decision, added copies of my original declination letter and her acceptance email to my files. October 2023. I noticed the agenda listed succession planning and founder advisory role between budget review and facilities maintenance. My cognitive function, like replacing the carpet. I documented the agenda item. Started a new section in my journal specifically for statements about my mental capacity. She interrupted my technical presentation 4 times in that meeting. Made decisions without consulting. Told clients I was semi-retired. She thought I wouldn't notice the pattern. She never understood that expertise isn't about keeping up with trends. It's about mastering fundamentals so thoroughly that you see what everyone else misses. October 12, 2023. Board Agenda Item 7. Founder Transition Discussion. 7 members present. Melissa interrupted my technical presentation 4 times. I wrote it all down. I arrived at the office at 1:56 p.m. on October 12, 2023. Quarterly board meeting scheduled for 2 o'clock. Same meeting I'd attended every 3 months for 22 years. The 3rd floor hallway was quieter than usual. Staff who normally nodded hello kept their eyes on computer screens as I passed. The glass walls of the boardroom showed 3 men in expensive suits I'd never seen before. I opened the door at 1:58 p.m. 7 board members sat along the mahogany table. Laura Kendrick studied her hands. The other 3 original members wouldn't meet my eyes. Melissa's 2 recruited members looked at their phones. Melissa sat at the head of the table. My usual seat. Todd beside her, smile wider than necessary, silver cufflinks catching the afternoon light from the windows. The 3 strangers wore matching navy suits. Leather briefcases stood at attention beside their chairs. Attorneys. I took the empty seat at the opposite end of the table. Thank you all for being here. Melissa's words came slow and careful, each syllable measured. I know this is difficult, but we need to address concerns about the company's leadership. She opened a folder. The video conferencing equipment blinked red. Recording. I'm calling a vote to remove Arthur Brenner from his position as CEO due to declining cognitive function and concerning behavioral changes that affect his ability to lead this organization. Laura's head snapped up. The 3 attorneys maintained grave, professional expressions. Melissa slid a document across the table toward the board members. I've documented several incidents over the past 6 months. In September, Dad forgot a client's name during an authentication meeting. He confused 2 different Roberts, had to check his notes multiple times. I questioned which Robert she meant when she'd scheduled back-to-back consultations without specifying. The confusion lasted 30 seconds. He's shown increasing disorientation about company finances. Last quarter, he expressed confusion about our revenue numbers, claimed the projections didn't make sense. Because her projections inflated actual revenue by 18%. I'd asked her to show me the supporting data. She'd called that confusion. Most concerning are the paranoid accusations about missing funds. He's claimed vendor payments don't match invoices, insisted on auditing accounts that have been verified by our accountants. The accounting discrepancies were real. 3 vendor payments in August exceeded the original invoices by a combined $47,000. Todd leaned forward. We've noticed his resistance to necessary technological changes. He refuses to implement industry-standard authentication software, insists on outdated manual methods that limit our capacity. The attorneys nodded. One made notes in a leather portfolio. Melissa's voice softened. Dad, honey, we love you. But you're 78 years old and 67. The correction came out quiet. Factual. My hands stayed folded on the table. Melissa turned to the board. See? He's disoriented about basic facts, like his own age. Classic early-stage symptoms. She pushed another document forward. We've consulted with geriatric specialists. Dr. Westbrook from UPMC has reviewed Dad's behavioral patterns and recommends immediate cognitive assessment, fabricating medical assessments. The same pattern as the forged signatures Evelyn would bring me in 6 days. I'd never met Dr. Westbrook, never been examined by any specialist. The pattern is textbook, one attorney said. His voice carried rehearsed sympathy. Early cognitive decline presents as confusion about routine information, paranoid ideation about finances, resistance to change. Laura set her pen down with enough force that it clicked against the table. Arthur authenticated a complex Andrew Carnegie letter for my collection 3 weeks ago. His analysis was flawless. Identified ink composition, paper aging, handwriting characteristics. Nothing about that examination suggested any decline whatsoever. Melissa smiled with patient understanding. Good days and bad days, Laura. We've actually consulted with geriatric specialists about this pattern, which is why we need to act now, while Dad can still participate in the transition process. She opened another folder. I'm proposing myself as CEO, Todd as COO. We've prepared a transition timeline that allows Dad to maintain advisory status and full benefits. He'd continue receiving his current compensation while stepping back from operational decisions. The room stayed silent. Traffic noise filtered through the triple-pane windows 17 stories below. The board needs to vote, Melissa said. Her 2 recruited members raised their hands immediately. 2 votes for removal. Laura Kendrick shook her head. The 3 other original members followed. 4 votes against. 7 votes total. I abstained. 2 to 4 to 1. Melissa needed 5 votes to remove me. Her face flushed. The therapeutic sweetness left her voice. What remained was sharper. Business school dismissiveness I recognized from board meetings. This stubbornness is destroying this company. You're stuck in 1985 while business has evolved around you. She shoved a stack of papers across the mahogany surface. They slid to a stop 6 inches from my folded hands. Just sign the transition documents, Dad. Make this easy on everyone. You know this is inevitable. I stood. The chair didn't scrape. I'd pulled it back carefully. 7 board members watched. 3 attorneys maintained their grave expressions. Todd's smile had frozen into something harder. No. The word came out measured. Final. This meeting is adjourned. I moved toward the door. My gait stayed steady. Back straight. The same posture I'd maintained for 30 years of federal testimony. Todd's laughter followed me into the hallway. That went well. The glass walls showed Melissa gathering her documents with sharp, angry movements. Laura Kendrick was standing to leave. I took the stairs instead of the elevator. 3 flights down to the parking garage. My hands stayed steady on the railing. The BMW in the executive spot had Todd's vanity plate. Leased vehicle, $40,000 watch, country club membership he couldn't afford. I got into my 2011 Honda Accord, started the engine, drove home through afternoon traffic on Grant Street. The dashboard clock read 2:23 p.m. when I pulled into my driveway. 25 minutes since the meeting started. Inside, I went straight to the basement workshop, pulled out my leather journal, documented every detail while the memory stayed fresh. October 12, 2023, 2 p.m. Quarterly board meeting. 3 attorneys present, names unknown. Melissa called vote for my removal as CEO. Cited cognitive decline, produced fabricated medical assessment from Dr. Westbrook, specialist I've never met. Vote failed 2 to 4 to 1. Melissa lost control when plan failed. Todd's laughter audible as I left boardroom. I closed the journal, set it on the workbench beside my stereoscopic microscope. The filing cabinets held 45 years of signature exemplars, documentation from every case I'd worked. I opened the cabinet. Margaret's handwriting on file labels from 1983. My own signatures evolving across 45 years. Everything Melissa would need to forge convincingly was right here. Melissa thought she could remove me with staged meetings and fabricated medical reports. She'd shown me how far she was willing to go. Amateur mistakes revealed themselves under proper examination. The week passed in tense silence. I documented the board meeting, then waited. On the evening of October 18th, the day after the documents were created, the doorbell rang at 8:47 p.m. I set down my documentation journal and climbed the basement stairs. Through the frosted glass panel, Evelyn Santos stood on the porch, her shoulders drawn forward. She held a manila folder against her chest with both hands. I opened the door. "Mr. Brenner, I'm sorry to bother you so late." Her voice came out thin. "I found these on the copier. Didn't know what to do. Thought you should see them." She glanced over her shoulder at the empty street before stepping inside. I led her to the basement workshop. She descended the stairs carefully, one hand on the railing. At the bottom, she crossed to my workbench and set the folder beside my stereoscopic microscope. "Show me." She opened the folder. Documents spread across the workbench. Corporate ownership transfer forms. Pennsylvania state filing documents. Notarized signatures and dated witness statements, each one bearing what appeared to be my name. I pulled the first page closer. The signature looked right at first glance. Proper slant. Correct letter formation. The capital B started with the same upward stroke I'd used for 45 years. But I'd never signed this document. "Thank you for bringing these," I said. "You can go home now. Don't mention this to anyone, especially not Melissa." Relief washed across her face. She climbed the stairs faster than she'd descended. The basement door closed. Her car started in the driveway. Then silence. I pulled on my reading glasses and positioned the first document under the microscope. Adjusted the magnification to 40 power. The signature filled the viewfinder. Baseline waiver. I traced the horizontal line with my loop. Natural handwriting followed an invisible baseline. This signature wandered. Someone following a traced path. I moved to the pressure analysis. Genuine signatures show variation in ink density. The downstrokes press harder. The connecting strokes lighten. Muscle memory creates patterns you can't consciously replicate. This signature showed uniform pressure through every stroke. I shifted the document under the magnification. Along the right edge of my name, a faint rectangular outline appeared in the paper fibers. Photocopy artifacts. She'd scanned my signature from an existing document, placed it digitally onto these forms, then printed to create what looked like originals. I examined the second page. Same baseline waiver. Same uniform pressure. Same photocopy artifacts along the signature edges. The third page. Fourth. Fifth. 47 ownership transfer forms. Each one attempting to move my 60% stake in Brenner Document Solutions to River Valley Holdings, LLC. I removed my reading glasses and set them in their leather case. Baseline waiver. 30 years examining documents, I'd encountered it exactly twice. Both forgers used lightbox tracing. Both convicted on federal mail fraud charges. My daughter thought I wouldn't notice. I pulled open the filing cabinet beside my workbench. 45 years of signature exemplars filled the drawers. Personal contracts from 1978. Company and corporation papers from 2001. Annual filings. Every signature showing natural evolution as my handwriting matured and my hands aged. I selected a transparency sheet from the supply drawer. positioned it over the forged signature under the microscope, traced the outline with a fine point marker. Then I pulled my 2019 contract signature from the files and overlaid the transparency. Perfect match. She'd traced my signature from a 3-year-old document without accounting for natural evolution. My 2023 handwriting showed subtle changes from 2019. Slightly different letter spacing. Marginally altered stroke angles from arthritis in my knuckles. The forgeries were frozen in time. Amateur work. I photographed each document using my digital microscopy camera. Documented the baseline measurements. Recorded pressure variations. Prepared preliminary analysis notes the same way I had for 30 years of federal cases. At 10:23 p.m., I pulled my phone from my cardigan pocket and called Patrick. He answered on the third ring. "Dad, it's late. I need metadata from any PDFs Melissa created in October. Tonight. Can you do this?" Silence on the line stretched 5 seconds. "How bad is it?" he asked. "Just the metadata. I'll explain when you get here." The call ended. I returned to the microscope. Under magnification, the hesitation marks became visible. Tiny pauses in the pen stroke where Melissa had stopped to check her reference copy. Natural signatures flow from muscle memory. These showed conscious effort at every curve. Patrick's car pulled into the driveway at 12:34 a.m. His footsteps crossed the kitchen floor overhead. The basement door opened. He came down the stairs carrying a laptop and USB drive. His face looked older in the fluorescent light. Tired around the eyes. "Show me," he said. I positioned the documents on the workbench. He opened his laptop and plugged in the USB drive. Patrick pulled the laptop closer. Melissa's office computer. October 17th, late. 11:47 p.m. to 2:23 a.m. All 47 documents. Same software session. October 17th. 5 days after the board meeting where her removal vote failed. Patrick pulled up security footage on his laptop screen. The timestamp read 11:34 p.m. Melissa entering through the side entrance. Leather briefcase in one hand, portable scanner in the other. Next clip, 2:47 a.m. Melissa leaving. Same briefcase. No scanner visible. Server logs show she accessed your personnel file 17 times between September and October, Patrick said. Downloaded signature samples each time. He closed the laptop. Looked at the documents spread across my workbench. His jaw tightened. He opened it again, closed it. Looked at me, then back at the screen. "What do you need from me?" "Keep this quiet until I say otherwise." He nodded and left without another word. I made coffee at 11:15 p.m. Called Chen Wei's number in Philadelphia. "Arthur?" His voice carried sleep. "What's wrong?" "I need independent analysis of questioned documents. Tonight. Can you come?" The line went quiet for 3 seconds. "Address?" I gave him directions. Hung up. Returned to documenting the forgeries with practiced precision. Chen's sedan pulled up at 4:47 a.m. Through the basement window, headlights swept across the driveway. Engine cut. Car door closed with German precision. I met him at the door. He carried 2 equipment cases and wore comfortable driving clothes. We set up his examination tools beside mine in the workshop. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Machine oil and old paper. Same smell as 40 years of examination work. He worked without speaking. Pulled each document under his stereoscopic microscope. Measured baseline deviations. Analyzed pressure patterns. Compared stroke sequences against my exemplar archive. The coffee pot emptied twice. Big band radio played Glenn Miller at low volume. Outside the small basement windows, Pittsburgh stayed dark. At 9:47 a.m., Chen straightened from his microscope, removed his wire-rimmed glasses, rubbed the bridge of his nose. Zero possibility. These are authentic, Arthur. His voice carried certainty I recognized from 40 years of working together. I'll testify under oath. The science leaves no room for doubt. I nodded slowly. Federal mail fraud, if she attempts to mail these to our corporate attorney. Same statute I enforced for 30 years. Chen looked at the documents arranged across my workbench. 47 separate counts, each one carrying up to 20 years. She did this to herself, he said. I pulled out evidence documentation forms. Same forms I'd used for 14,000 question documents. Began assembling the package, piece by piece. Forensic analysis with detailed photographs. Exemplar archive showing 45 years of natural signature evolution. Patrick's metadata report proving timeline of creation. Security footage confirming Melissa's presence at the exact time documents were generated. Server logs documenting her examination access to signature samples. Chen prepared his independent analysis, 63 pages, with microscopic imagery, spectroscopic charts, mathematical deviation measurements. Professional seal on every page. Morning light filtered through the basement windows. The evidence package sat complete on my workbench. Everything documented. Everything verified. Everything ready for federal prosecution. I sealed the package in a courier envelope. Addressed it to FBI Special Agent Rebecca Moss in my practiced handwriting. White Collar Crimes Division. The same division I'd worked with for 30 years. The same handwriting Melissa had tried to forge. Chen packed his equipment cases, paused at the basement stairs. Your daughter made one critical error, he said. She assumed expertise was about big knowledge. Our work has always been about the smallest details. That's where truth lives. He climbed the stairs. His car started in the driveway. I sat at my workbench. The forged documents lay arranged in chronological order. Melissa's 3-hour work session, attempting to steal what I'd built across 45 years. She practiced my signature 17 times, studied exemplars, used professional scanning equipment, executed the forgery in one focused session. And every document revealed itself under proper examination. Baseline waiver from tracing. Uniform pressure lacking muscle memory. Photocopy artifacts from digital manipulation. Hesitation marks showing conscious effort rather than automatic motion. 30 years teaching federal prosecutors how to prove forgery in court. Testified 47 times. Secured 200 convictions. Now I'd use that same expertise to document my daughter's crime. The evidence package sat sealed and ready. Federal mail fraud, wire fraud, conspiracy. Each charge backed by irrefutable forensic analysis. She did this to herself. I filed the emergency injunction Thursday morning at 9:17 a.m. My attorney met me outside the Allegheny County Court of Common Pleas with the evidence package assembled in Chen's workshop. 312 pages of documentation. Forensic analysis reports. Metadata logs. Security footage transcripts. 45 years of signature exemplars arranged chronologically. The clerk stamped the filing at 9:52 a.m. Case number 2023, CV 1847. Emergency motion, freezing all corporate transactions until the court ruled on the forgery evidence. My attorney handed the clerk a second envelope addressed to Judge Morrison's chambers. Priority review requested. Evidence of ongoing fraud. The clerk nodded and disappeared through a door behind the counter. We left the courthouse at 10:15 a.m. Traffic moved slowly on Grant Street. I'd testified in that building 47 times over 30 years. Same marble floors, same high ceilings, same oak-paneled courtrooms where prosecutors mounted blown-up photographs of pressure patterns invisible to untrained eyes. Thursday evening, my attorney called at 6:23 p.m. Judge Morrison reviewed the package. He's granting the injunction. Order goes into effect Friday morning at 9. When's the full hearing? Monday at 2. He wants this resolved quickly. I thanked him and hung up. Opened my leather journal and documented the timeline. My attorney had mentioned Judge Morrison spent 20 years prosecuting white-collar crime before his appointment to the bench. His reputation for intolerance of document fraud was well known in the legal community. Friday morning at 10:15 a.m., a U.S. Marshal walked into Brenner Document Solutions, carrying court papers sealed in a manila envelope. I wasn't there to see it. Patrick called me at 10:47 a.m. Marshal just served the injunction. All bank accounts frozen. Share transfers prohibited. Melissa's in her office. She's calling you. My phone buzzed. Melissa's name appeared on the screen. I let it ring twice before answering. What the hell are you doing? Her voice came out high and tight. Protecting what I built. The hearing is Monday at 2 p.m. Bring your attorneys. You filed forgery charges? Against your own daughter? This is insane. Those signatures are real and you know it. The forensic analysis says otherwise. Forensic analysis from who? Your drinking buddy Chen? This is a paranoid delusion, Dad. You need help. We can get you help. But first, you need to withdraw these ridiculous accusations before you destroy everything. Her voice rose with each sentence. Background noise suggested she'd closed her office door. The evidence is documented, I said. Baseline waiver, pressure inconsistencies, photocopy artifacts. All 47 signatures show the same tells. I'll sue you for defamation, for elder abuse, for everything you've got left. I have 3 attorneys who will testify you're having a psychotic break. I've examined 14,000 question documents in my career, Melissa. 14,000. Your forgeries wouldn't fool a first-year examiner. I ended the call. Set the phone on my workbench beside the restored Parker Vacuumatic I'd completed Sunday morning. Glenn Miller played from Margaret's radio. Monday afternoon, at 1:58 p.m., I walked into Judge Morrison's courtroom carrying my leather portfolio. The same 4th-floor courtroom where I'd testified in mail fraud cases from 1987 to 2008. Same oak witness stand. Same jury box. Empty today. Same high windows looking out over Grant Street. Melissa sat at the defendant's table with 3 attorneys in matching navy suits. Todd beside her, silver cufflinks visible when he crossed his arms. She wore a charcoal business suit and pearl earrings. Her makeup looked freshly applied. Professional armor. Laura Kendrick sat in the gallery with the other 3 original board members. They nodded when I entered. Judge Morrison took the bench at 2:03 p.m. Gray hair, steel-rimmed glasses, face that showed no particular expression. Emergency hearing in the matter of Brenner v. Brenner Document Solutions. Mr. Brenner, you may call your first witness. My attorney stood. The petitioner calls Dr. Chen Wei. Chen walked to the witness stand in a conservative gray suit and bow tie. He placed his right hand on the Bible. The clerk administered the oath. My attorney approached the stand. Dr. Wei, please state your credentials for the court. 42 years as certified forensic document examiner. Testified as expert witness in 87 federal cases. Published 31 peer-reviewed papers on signature authentication methodology. Did you examine the question documents submitted as Exhibit A? I did. All 47 ownership transfer forms. What were your findings? Chen pulled reading glasses from his jacket pocket. Every signature shows consistent forensic tells indicating forgery. Baseline waiver from tracing rather than natural muscle memory. Uniform ink pressure, lacking the unconscious variations of genuine handwriting. Hesitation marks where the forger paused to check reference copies. Photocopy artifacts, indicating digital manipulation of scanned signatures. My attorney mounted blown-up photographs on an easel facing the bench. Microscopic imagery showing the pressure inconsistencies. Spectroscopic analysis of ink density. Side-by-side comparisons with my authenticated signatures from the same time period. Is there any possibility these signatures are authentic? My attorney asked. Zero possibility. The forensic evidence leaves no doubt. Melissa's lead attorney stood for cross-examination. Dr. Wei, isn't it true you and Mr. Brenner worked together for decades? That you have personal friendship that might bias your analysis? Chen looked at him over his glasses. I maintain professional standards, regardless of personal relationships. These findings would hold under any independent review. I've testified in federal court 87 times. My methodology has never been successfully challenged. The attorney sat down. Next witness, Judge Morrison said. Patrick took the stand. His hands stayed steady when the clerk administered the oath. My attorney approached. Mr. Brenner, what is your position at Brenner Document Solutions? IT Director. Did you conduct a forensic analysis of company computer systems? I did. All 47 PDF documents were created on Melissa Brenner Hartwick's office computer on October 17, 2023, between 11:47 p.m. and 2:23 a.m. Single software session. Server logs show she accessed Arthur Brenner's personnel file 17 times between September and October, downloading signature samples each access. Objection! Melissa's attorney stood. This testimony suggests premeditation without establishing intent. Judge Morrison looked at Patrick. The metadata is factual? Yes, Your Honor. I can provide the complete server logs. Objection. Overruled. Continue. My attorney nodded to Patrick. Did you review security camera footage from those dates? Yes. Footage shows Melissa entering the building at 11:34 p.m. on October 17th, carrying a portable scanner. She left at 2:47 a.m. Timeline matches the document creation metadata exactly. Patrick stepped down. His face stayed professionally neutral, but his jaw was tight. Next witness. Evelyn Santos walked to the stand. Her hands trembled slightly when she raised her right hand for the oath. My attorney's voice stayed gentle. Miss Santos, what is your position at the company? Executive Secretary. I've worked there 14 years. Did you witness anything unusual regarding signature documents? She nodded. I saw Melissa practicing signatures late at night. February, March, August. She had tracing paper and a light table set up in the conference room. When I asked what she was doing, she said it was confidential board business. Thank you, Ms. Santos. I took the stand last. My attorney asked me to present the exemplar archive. I opened my portfolio and removed the transparency overlays. Positioned them on the document camera so the image projected on the screen behind the witness stand. These are authenticated signatures from 1978 to 2023. 45 years showing natural evolution of my handwriting. The questioned signatures show no such evolution. They're frozen copies traced from a 2019 document. I demonstrated the overlay technique, showed how the forged signatures matched my 2019 exemplar exactly while my current handwriting had evolved through subtle changes in letter spacing and stroke angles. Judge Morrison leaned forward, studying the projected images. Melissa's attorneys attempted brief cross-examination, but found no weaknesses in the forensic methodology. Judge Morrison removed his glasses. Evidence shows 47 forged signatures. Scientific analysis leaves no doubt. Melissa Brenner Hartwick is removed from all company positions, effective immediately. FBI has been notified of potential federal mail fraud. U.S. Attorney's Office will determine if criminal charges are warranted. He signed the order. The gavel came down at 6:18 p.m. FBI agent Rebecca Moss served the search warrant at Melissa's home at 6:30 p.m. Patrick texted me at 6:47 p.m. Todd emptied their joint account this afternoon. Fled to Atlantic City. Melissa's alone. I set my phone on the workbench. Outside the basement windows, November darkness had settled over Pittsburgh. She did this to herself. The FBI search warrant arrived at Melissa's home 3 days later, Tuesday morning at 10:47 a.m. Agent Rebecca Moss called me from the suburban development where Melissa and Todd had lived for 3 years. "Mr. Brenner, we found something you need to see." I drove to the address in Wexford. Expensive houses with 3-car garages and manicured lawns. Melissa's home sat at the end of a cul-de-sac. 2 FBI vehicles blocked the driveway. Agents carried boxes from the front door. Rebecca met me on the porch. Navy windbreaker. Yellow FBI letters. Same outfit I'd seen 100 times in federal cases. "Home office, 2nd floor," she said. I followed her up carpeted stairs. The office had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the backyard. Expensive desk, leather chair, built-in bookshelves. Rebecca handed me a manila folder. Found these in her desk drawer. Bottom left, under tax returns. I opened the folder. 7 pages of lined notebook paper. My signature written repeatedly across each page. First page showed my signature, traced 15 times, baseline wandering. Middle pages showed tighter control. Final pages would fool casual observers, but still showed hesitation marks under magnification. Practice sheets. 30 years examining fraud cases taught me criminals keep practice materials. They think preparation shows intent to succeed, not evidence of crime. She kept them, I said. Most amateurs do. They think the practice proves effort, not crime. I set the folder on the desk. Turned to examine the bookshelves. True crime section took up 3 shelves. Books about Bernie Madoff, Elizabeth Holmes, Anna Delvey. First editions in protective covers. I pulled the Madoff book. Yellow sticky notes marked specific pages. Margin notes in Melissa's handwriting. Took too long to diversify offshore accounts. Should have maintained smaller client base. Tactical error trusting family members with details. She'd studied successful criminals. Analyzed their mistakes. Never considered she was reading cautionary tales, not instruction manuals. "There's more," Rebecca said. "Your son's forensic audit came back." Patrick's report filled 2 binders. 143 suspicious transactions between February 2022 and October 2023. Small amounts building systematically. Classic embezzlement structure. She'd studied this the way I studied forgery. Total amount, $2.4 million. Fake vendor accounts for authentication equipment that never arrived. Inflated invoices for legitimate vendors with differences deposited to accounts Melissa controlled. Rush fees billed to clients for expedited service, never actually provided. She used CFO authority to approve these without secondary authorization, Patrick had written in his summary. Todd's marketing budget provided cover for cash withdrawals disguised as entertainment expenses. The forgery scheme wasn't about business philosophy or succession planning. It was about hiding theft. Once I was removed and the company sold, acquisition due diligence would clean the books. The $2.4 million would disappear into accounting adjustments. Simple theft dressed up as family conflict. Rebecca's phone buzzed. She read the message and looked at me. U.S. Attorney's Office is filing charges. 47 counts of wire fraud for each electronic transmission to your corporate attorney, plus conspiracy charges. Conspiracy. Same statute I'd built cases around for 30 years. 47 mail fraud counts. I knew exactly how prosecutors would structure this. Each mail fraud count carried up to 20 years. "There's something else about Todd," she said. "We pulled his financial records. He owes $340,000 to offshore sports betting sites. Another $85,000 in poker debts to local businessmen who were losing patience. That explained the hostile push. Todd wasn't building a business. He was drowning. That explained the aggressive timeline, the hostile push for my removal. Todd needed the company sale to clear debts Melissa didn't know existed. He's being charged as co-conspirator," Rebecca said. The emergency board meeting happened Thursday afternoon. 6 members present in the glass-walled boardroom. Melissa and Todd absent. Their 2 recruited members had resigned Wednesday morning, distancing themselves from the federal investigation. The remaining 6 were Laura Kendrick, the 3 original members, and 2 senior staff who'd been elevated to fill vacancies. Laura Kendrick called the meeting to order at 2 o'clock. Motion to terminate Melissa Brenner Hartwick and Todd Hartwick for cause, effective immediately. Pursue civil recovery of embezzled funds. The vote was 6-0. Unanimous. "Arthur," Laura said after the meeting, "I'm sorry we didn't see this sooner." I nodded. There was nothing else to say. Melissa's defense attorneys filed motions in November, claimed I was having a paranoid episode. The forgery accusations were delusions of a declining mind. Their daughter was victim of her father's mental illness. The cognitive decline defense, same strategy as the board meeting attack. Threatening exposure without specific claims. Same mistake the 1994 Pittsburgh fraud ring made. That case collapsed in preliminary hearing. Dr. Philip Grant testified at the December hearing. He'd been my physician for 15 years. Mr. Brenner's most recent physical examination showed cognitive function and memory recall consistent with a man 20 years younger, he said from the witness stand. No signs of dementia, confusion, or paranoid ideation. Laura Kendrick testified about the Andrew Carnegie letter authentication I'd completed in September. 3 weeks before the board meeting, where Melissa declared me mentally unfit. The analysis was flawless, Laura said. Identified ink composition through spectroscopic analysis. Dated paper aging. Authenticated handwriting characteristics. Nothing about that examination suggested any decline whatsoever. The defense collapsed under forensic evidence, metadata analysis, security footage, practice sheets, and witness testimony. No credible argument remained. Melissa accepted a plea agreement in January. Guilty to 15 counts of mail fraud. 60 months in federal prison. $2.4 million restitution. Permanent ban from corporate officer positions. Todd accepted a separate plea. Guilty to conspiracy. 36 months. Joint liability for restitution. The sentencing hearing happened on a Thursday in February. My attorney said, appearing showed I wasn't hiding. Federal prosecutors appreciated visible victims. I wore my Navy suit and sat in the gallery 3 rows back. The courtroom was the same one where I'd testified in mail fraud cases from 1987 to 2008. Melissa sat at the defendant's table wearing a conservative gray suit. Minimal makeup. Simple hair. Weight loss visible in her face. The confidence gone completely. She didn't interrupt her attorney. Didn't lean forward. Didn't make notes. Just sat there. Judge Morrison took the bench at 2 o'clock. United States versus Melissa Brenner Hartwick. The defendant has pleaded guilty to 15 counts of mail fraud. Sentencing recommendations have been reviewed. He detailed the crimes, the systematic embezzlement, the forgery scheme designed to hide theft, the betrayal of family trust for financial gain, 60 months in federal prison, $2.4 million restitution, permanent prohibition from serving as corporate officer. 3 years supervised release following incarceration. The gavel came down. I sat without moving. My hands stayed folded in my lap. My face showed nothing. In the hallway afterward, Melissa approached. Her attorney tried to stop her, but she pulled away. "Dad, please, I need to." I looked through her as if she were glass. Transparent. Already gone. Walked past without breaking stride. My footsteps echoed on the marble floor. Behind me, I heard her say my name. Then silence. Then footsteps running the other direction. She did this to herself. Sunday morning, April 13th, 2025. I set the restored Schiefer balance on my workbench at 9:47 a.m. The lever filler mechanism had required precise adjustment. Too much tension would crack the barrel. Too little left the sack underfilled. Previous owner was left-handed, creating wear patterns on the right side of the nib, visible under magnification. The striated marine green celluloid had held its color well. Original owner kept it in a desk stand based on the tapering. I tested the ink flow against cardstock. The line ran clean. No skips. Glenn Miller played for Margaret's radio. Same station. Same ritual we'd shared for 20 years before. Cancer took her in 2016. The Sunday morning ritual continued, unchanged. The company had recovered to $2.2 million in annual revenue. Not the $8 million valuation from before Melissa's scheme, but stable, ethical. Patrick served as CFO now. Dual authorization on all transfers over $5,000. Quarterly external audits. Monthly board review of vendor payments. The systems prevented embezzlement through simple arithmetic rather than trust. The 4 original board members stayed. Chen recommended 2 new members. Both brought authentication expertise, not business school theories about optimization and scaling. I trained the junior examiners myself. Meticulous examination over rushed deadlines. Testimony records over quarterly metrics. Reputation built across decades. Laura Kendrick brought me a potentially forged Declaration of Independence signature 3 weeks ago. Modern synthetic compounds in the iron gall base. Manufactured after 1970. Laura's client had nearly paid $3 million for a forgery made last decade. The work continued. Patrick drove to the federal facility in Alderson once a month. Visiting hours, phone calls, the brother-sister relationship he maintained despite everything. I stayed in Pittsburgh. I still remembered how she'd called my name in that courthouse hallway. How I'd kept walking. Todd served 18 months before parole. Lost the house, the BMW, the country club membership. Works at his father's car dealership now. Sales position. I'd heard this from Patrick. The information registered the same way weather reports did. Facts without feelings. The workshop smelled like Hoppy's No. 9 and fountain pen ink. Glenn Miller's saxophone drifted from Margaret's radio. Morning light filtered through the small windows near the ceiling. I added the Schiefer to the glass case as specimen number 445. Opened my leather catalog and documented the acquisition date, restoration notes, provenance details. Everything recorded the way I documented 14,000 question documents across 30 years of federal testimony. Margaret would find me in the workshop at midnight, fountain pen parts spread across my bench. "You see the world in ink and paper," she'd say. I'd look up from the microscope and nod. Someone has to. 45 years of signature exemplars filled my filing cabinets. Every authentic signature showing natural evolution through decades of muscle memory. The kind of expertise you can't fake with tracing paper and 3 hours in an empty office at midnight. Documents don't lie about what they are. People sign their names the same way for 40 years. Pressure patterns become automatic. Stroke sequences reflect rhythm developed over decades. You can't fake a lifetime of muscle memory. I locked the glass case. Pen number 445 sat beside the others. green celluloid catching morning light. Outside, Sunday traffic moved down Murray Avenue. Inside, Glenn Miller played the same songs Margaret had loved. The work continued.